Hi, and welcome to Tremco Live. We are socially distant, but technically connected, and so excited to be with you every single Friday, live from Cleveland, Ohio. I am Marcy Tyler. I am the Director of Building Science for Tremco, and I am joined by
Paul Hoogenboom, and I'm the President of the Tremco Construction Products Group, Marcy, a big global collection of brands and companies and products and business lines and stuff.
Lots of stuff. We were just sitting here having a conversation like we do every Friday, just about what's going on in the industry, what's going on. We used to talk about weather when it was miserable, but now it's nice out. So.
It's been sunny like forever. So
we get used to it when we finally have good weather here in Northeast Ohio. That's for sure. So, and it is the Tribe home opener this evening against Kansas City Royals.
How about that?
So.
Christmas cake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as we've been meeting throughout these last couple of months, we've had different themes that we focused on, and July has been our connectivity month. It was interesting, we started off with our Independence Day presentation, which is how we connect with each other, right? Mm-hmm. And then we started to talk about buildings and how they connect. And I believe last week I asked Paul, I'm like, how many different transitions or connections do we think are on a project?
We said, I don't know, did I say millions, gazillions?
Yeah, gazillions. I think that was exactly the word we said, gazillions, and I definitely think that's true. So today specifically, we wanted to talk about expansion joints and transitions, but I know we've always talked about when we start to look at different applications, those materials have to do so much, right? When you're connecting two dissimilar substrates or materials, there's so much that it has to do. Not only adhere, and we always talk about adhesion and compatibility, right? Yeah. But then it has to be able to move and expand and contract in the same way that the two materials do. So yeah. Even more so, right? And then it's in all different directions.
Yeah, a lot of times those two materials have very, very different properties in terms of how they move and react.
Exactly, right? So I think it goes back to that point, and I think we said it last week too, is to do, an opaque wall, that's very easy. But when you start making all the connections all over the place, that's where it can be difficult. And that's where the different types of technologies really come into play. And that is what our topic is today. So let's get some slides up there for you all. Sorry, little gap here in getting them up there and on display for everybody, but I think you can see them all now. So we wanted to take a deeper dive into just that, those expansion joints and those transitions. And as you can see, as Paul mentioned, that big amount of companies, brands, products, systems, and of course, all the people that come with it. Since today, we're talking specifically about expansion joints and transitions, I just threw up some definitions, right? So connectivity, the state or extent of being connected or interconnected, and then transition, changing from a state or condition to another. I put two pictures up there, Paul, of two different chains. One obviously is a missing link.
Yeah.
That's not good, right? If there's no connection there, we're gonna have air and water,
yeah.
Indoor air quality issues,
yeah.
Heating and cooling issues, bugs potentially making their way in. I mean, there's a whole lot of things like that.
There's going to be negative and positive pressure on that opening, and it's going to pull and push things in.
Exactly.
You don't want.
Right, and that's a whole other thing to think of, right? So we think of our products in a state of, like a steady state versus, well, it's going to have high temperatures, low temperatures, pressure differentials, moisture differentials, all those different things that come into play. Yeah. And the other picture I have up there is a link has been made in that chain, but it doesn't look like a very strong one in comparison.
No, unless you actually wanted it to come apart really fast.
There you go, right? Maybe you want that, right? Depending on what's going on, maybe you want that. Yeah. That could be your intent. So I put them both up there just for that conversation of, one, we don't want to not connect because we need to do that. But we also need to understand how we want to connect. And if we connect with something that's too rigid, you're going to have an issue, right? If you connect with something that's not strong enough, you're going to have an issue. So all of those factors come into play, and it's a really big job to take on that transition. And once again, that's where we really want to be a partner in the industry to everybody to say, bring us those connection issues you have. Let's validate them together. Let's talk about them and see what we can do. And since we always talk about compatibility, I thought I'd just put up an example of that. So not only do we have to make sure we have something that can expand and contract and move, we want to make sure that it adheres and adheres in the appropriate way. And as you mentioned, different surfaces are going to have different capabilities and ability to connect. Compatibility is huge.
Yeah, and I would say, it's a couple things, Marcy. Some compatibility issues show up really fast, but some don't. And
True.
so the ones that show up 3, 5, even 10 years later, those are the tricky ones.
They're definitely tricky. And this is an example of just that, right? So sometimes it takes a while for something to show up. So this test actually accelerates it, right? So it puts it in an accelerated condition. So you're hoping to be able to say, okay, if an issue is going to happen, let's try to force it to happen, and then let's investigate what happened.
Yep.
So in this example, Paul, I did 3 different polyurethane sealants that can be classified as polyurethane sealants, but they're different because their volatile content's different. So their reaction in this test is different. So the first one that passed is a very good, what we call neighbor-friendly sealant. Doesn't have a lot of volatile content. It's a great sealant. That one passed even at that accelerated condition. The next one is a polyurethane sealant, has a little more, it's got some volatile content in it. It had issues, right? It made the rubberized asphalt run, not a good connection. And the last one, imagine there was a peel and stick over that and I removed it. So the rubberized asphalt ran, and that sealant will never cure.
Wow.
It stunted its ability to cure. So there's lots of different ways that incompatibility or lack of compatibility can show up. And in this case, this was not good.
Yeah, we got back to you. You asked me how many connections were in a building, Marcy. I'd ask you, how many possible materials can you make a sealant or a gasket out of, right? Or a sheet material. There's literally hundreds of thousands. So again, the ability to really zero in on compatibility, it's a very, very complicated, complex topic that's both chemistry and I think testing, Marcy, right? We're really big on testing and trying to say what's that provable 30, 40, 50-year life in that building going to be? What's the science behind that?
Exactly, and a lot of times understanding that how properties of products change over time is so important too. So just like you said, having that testing done ahead of time and understanding how the life of the building is going to affect performance is so critical.
And even job specific, right, Marcy, where we always, one of the things you've taught me is that's just the best practice on a job. If you can, right, do the testing, do the mock-up, even if you've got a long proven history and a comfort level, just go to that extra step. Go to the extra step
because you never know if something has been changed, right, or something has been substituted, and that's why we address it in when we talk with consultants and customers about making sure they put it in their specifications. Make sure you do that compatibility and adhesion testing and verification up front. So we talked a little bit about how things have to move, how things have to adjust to different conditions. Some of the joints we're seeing, Paul, so now we've talked about there's so many transitions, there's so many materials, and then the joints themselves can vary, right? They could be 1/4 of an inch, they could be 8 inches, they could be in plane, they could be out of plane.
Yeah, and depending on what time of year it is.
Right, they could be an extension or compression.
There's tremendous movement, especially on large structures.
Exactly. Oh yeah. And you can even see that in like a tilt-up wall, the pressure that you're seeing at the top of it versus the bottom. And then if you're going up story to story to story, those pressures and the wind loading, everything is different. So many years ago, we looked into and had, excuse me, I went the wrong way, different types of technologies that we looked at. And Simple Seal was one of those that we've had for many, many years. It was something that we knew was a great way to detail expansion joints or to make that connection. So this is a great example of just how simple it can be to go over an expansion joint instead of tearing it out and recaulking it. So in this instance, that sealant has gone the miles that it had to. It's not looking so great. So all we're going to do for that fix is just use some sealant and Spectrum Simple Seal to go over the top of it. What's great with that is now you've got a nice flexible membrane that can go ahead, and even if it's not in plane, we can work with that, right, and be able to detail it. But we know those points of concerns are two beads of sealant, and then we're going to have something that's going to be able to bridge that joint and move.
And I think that's one of the things that is sort of unique to Tremco. We often think about how to just, if you will, isolate and completely go around, if you will.
Right.
Where you always call it glass to glass, but substrate to substrate.
Yeah.
That's a great picture. Simple Seal is one of my real favorite products, Marcy. You know, we can customize it in color and texture to match the substrate on either side, so you can't even see it's there. That's a big deal, you know, when you have the softer substrates, that if you were to try to clean that out and really restore it, you'd probably mar the surface on either side. So it's one of my favorites.
And definitely for sensitive substrates, you could, you know, disturb its coating. Then there's also OSHA, right? Some considerations if you had to grind that surface.
Yeah, if that's a building that's 40, 50 years old, oftentimes that sealant material in that joint will be considered hazardous. And just the staging alone for hazmat will surprise you on how expensive that is.
So a lot of that is stuff that we can't put a time factor on, but it does exist in terms of a complication when you're doing detailing of an expansion joint. So these can be used on expansion joints on a building, brand new construction, or great when used for restoration as well. We also found that there's a lot of different applications that we see out there that we utilize ProGlaze ETA on. So talked about Simple Seal first. We have that in a silicone and a urethane, and now just touch a little bit on this ProGlaze ETA, which is a engineered transition assembly with a clear silicone now. And this is an application where we connected a curtain wall to the wall.
I think one of the things we always like to talk about, Marcy, when we do host customers here, hopefully we'll do that. Well, I was going to say soon, but probably not that soon. Because we both do the extrusions and the gasketing, and we do what we call the wet sealants. You know, you've really educated me. There's no one size fits all, and often our solutions are a combination of both, where you gotta use both. So the fact that we can do both, and we're very custom oriented on the gasketing.
Yes, absolutely. So depending on what your connectivity need is, we just want to make sure that you're aware of that customizable solution that we can come up with. This one in particular, imagine that expanse of metal and how much that's going to move compared to that adjacent wall. So this was a great solution. And this is just an example of how we did a test on it, and 100 PSF. That's a lot. Usually when I'm in here talking to you about testing over the test facility, we're talking about 25 PSF. Yeah. So 100 PSF is pretty darn intense. And this next picture actually shows it having it in the negative direction at this test facility when we tested this many, many years ago. And you can see that bubbling of that membrane. And so that is pretty darn intense, and that membrane can withstand it, can hold up to it, and can even be racked side to side. So that's what we're talking about with these materials, right? They have to be able to expand, they have to be able to contract and move in different ways and in different directions, because that's what your building's going to be doing. So it's pretty
I think
amazing.
The picture you had on the last slide, Marcy, was really telling, because it's counterintuitive that you have that much pressure going on sometimes in your wall cavity.
Yeah. It's very intense to be able to see that. It's interesting. So when you think about things moving, I mean, things need to move, right? That's how things are made so that they don't break, right? So we need to have that natural movement of things. And I can remember early on, my brother's an engineer as well, and we were at Cedar Point looking at roller coasters, and we were going on them, and he told me to stand and look at one of the roller coasters. It was the Gemini, and he was like, watch, every time the cars go by, the entire roller coaster sways a certain number of inches, right? And that like disturbed me. I'm like, that's not right. He goes, oh, it needs to do that. And that was like that early on learning about how things need to move. And how critical when things move that we stay connected so that we're still being air and water tight. So since connectivity has been such a common thing for us, connecting to the window, to the wall, connecting to the roof, connecting to below grade, we've been able to put together some options for our customers. And here it shows you those few that I've been talking about: Dimonic Simple Seal, which is the urethane version, Spectrum Simple Seal, which is our silicone version, and then ProGlaze ETA, which is also silicone. Lots of different versions of that ProGlaze ETA, inside corners, outside corners. We've shown you all of that. But we were missing some applications, right? We had the need to really add to our portfolio. And so what we were able to do, as you can see here, add a lot more options.
They're all named Willseal.
They're all named Willseal. And with that, I would like to bring on our first guest today, Brian Iskey.
Hello, Marcy and Paul. How are you guys today?
Good. How are you, Brian?
How are you?
Yeah. Great. Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points, and we believe in a lot of those things you were talking about. We've done a tremendous amount of testing of our product, proof of concept, and also just trying to improve it constantly, always working to make sure it's the most dynamic. So it does move faster than any other, material, out there. And, we're unique that we start with the very best foam in the world, which is supplied by, Ilbrook, our sister company at Tremco Ilbrook in Europe. And they supply us a monolithic block of foam, and we're unique in that. And then we also do, we do laminations, but they're always bonded laminations. So we all know that, monolithic blocks work better than laminations. So you guys are bringing up a lot of good points.
Next slide here, I have some movement going on in some of these videos here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on here in these two videos?
Well, you've got, we have shear movement we test for, and we test for thermal movement, of course. So thermal's the easy one. Everybody talks about it. It's just the expansion and contraction of the concrete or substrate, masonry or whatever it might be, due to thermal changes. Whereas, the other one, when you start testing shear, both vertical and lateral shear, that's a much more stringent test. And our product, we guarantee 50% direction and thermal. And then we also have a plus or minus 25% guarantee in shear. But we do have safety factor on there. We know they can actually, some of them can perform better, and we can design products if you have a special need and fit custom applications too.
I love the picture here showing the joint between those two buildings. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, obviously, building to building connections are becoming more prevalent, especially in the larger cities. You've got a lot of zero lot line construction, and a lot of debris, and in the Northeast and northern states altogether in Canada, the big problem is snow getting in between buildings. And that snow gets in between, then the heat of the building melts it, it absorbs into the building and causes mold and all kinds of other damage to the substrates. And so now everybody's looking at sealing those up, these building to building connections. And the nice thing about ours is there's no evasive anchors, it's just adhesive anchors. So we're gluing it in place, so you're not damaging the structure, especially if the new building is typically who ends up paying for the connection to the old building, and the old building owner typically doesn't want any anchors going in because that's going to damage his structure, and we can do that.
So it works great to similar surfaces, to similar substrates, all different types of movement, and then of course it gives you that thermal aspect, which is great too. The previous slide was a view from the Willseal website of New York City. You want to tell us why that picture is chosen? Is there some noteworthy projects there?
Oh, there's a bunch of noteworthy projects. We did projects at the Empire State Building, and we've done also 432 Park Avenue, which is the tallest residential building in the United States, actually in the whole Western Hemisphere. And that building, when they have their dampeners, which they have movement dampeners that they can turn on, when those are off, that building sways up to, I believe it's 17 inches up at the top. And so you've got a lot of movement on that building. So when it connects to the buildings down below it, you've got to have dynamic ability there to take that movement. And they do turn them off once in a while. So the building can move in a big storm. There's a lot of wind load on that building.
That was a question in from Artie. Artie was asking that question to you, so.
Yeah. We have done some really nice projects in New York City. It was one of our biggest markets until very recently. We're growing it all over thanks to all the Tremco salespeople. We're very happy to have them as part of our team.
So seeing that building sway 17 inches is a lot more than that Gemini roller coaster that I saw at Cedar Point many years ago. Want to tell us a little bit about those unique attributes that Willseal brings to these projects?
Absolutely. Again, starting with the best foam, and that best foam means the best water repellency, it means fire retardancy, it means 20-year UV stability, and the foam alone, before we even add silicones or other coatings like urethanes or polysulfides or something like that. So, and then the foam itself too, the impregnation, just the good quality of it, lower in filler, makes it, and the cell structure of the foam that we impregnate also has a lot of dynamic, nature to it. And it's a much smaller cell structure in that foam, so that when you're compressing it, those cells close much faster, so that it stays watertight through a wider range of motion.
That's great. I know, obviously, Paul, we got our thermal chamber in this week. That'll be a future show when we get it all up and running, but very exciting to have that come in. I know we're looking at doing some additional thermal testing, and I think that's that huge advantage that we now have. So when we looked at those other expansion joint materials, we needed to add in something behind it, some sort of foam to give it thermal aspect. With this product, now we got your air, we got your water, and we have your thermal protection all in one, which is incredible and gives you such an advantage, which is why we were so excited about being able to add this into our portfolio.
Yeah, I think we've had a real, somewhere in our family, there's been a relationship. Brian, how far back do we go between the families?
Well, of course, Willseal brought the product over to the United States from Germany in 1984. I actually was the independent rep in the Boston metropolitan area starting in 88 to 95. And then I sold that company and bought another company then. But I started basically the connection was way back. The Schul, I started selling products to the Schul company back as early as 1990, Willseal products, because they couldn't make product on a roll. So yes, really since
almost it's what 30 plus years we aspired to having you as part of the Tremco family, and what a great day that was when we finally got that done.
Yeah, we brought the brand home to its original owners and the founders of the company. So, but yeah, it's been a great relationship. I've been very pleased. With all the people I've met and worked with at Tremco, very happy to be part of the Tremco family, to be honest with you. Thrilled.
We are thrilled to have you. Just throw in a case study here, Notre Dame Stadium with Willseal 250 that we did some mitered corners on, and obviously some other notable stadiums, because I promised Paul one day soon we're going to do a whole broadcast on stadiums.
We said that weeks ago, Marcy.
I have lots of weeks, Paul.
And then you did a little reach and found out we have so many stadiums.
We do.
Might require a few episodes.
Yeah, so Brian was watching last Friday, and when I mentioned that we are going to be doing Willseal, he was like, I know Mark's going to be calling me, and I should have looked right at the camera and said, and I'll be calling you.
I knew it. Yep,
so,
I did.
Appreciate that support, for sure.
Notre Dame was a great project. It was a complete collaboration with Simpson, Gumpertz, and Hager, and the contractor Quinn Construction. We won a Trinity Award for that project too, by the way, an SWRI Trinity Award.
Yes.
We manufactured over 2,600 risers and the treads and risers in a special configuration, and we had to number them and lay them out so they knew exactly what part of the stadium they were going to be in, because the treads and risers were different lengths, because the bowl itself, the original bowl was built, back almost in 1814 or something, 1914, something like that. And then of course it had been added on to over the years, and each time they changed things a little bit. So we had different sections, and we had to label them for them, and so they could lay it out easily. But it was really a great project. We had a lot of fun doing it.
Speaking of fun, this is a perfect segue to this slide that we have here. This is a picture of us at SWRI back in February, back when we were able to travel.
Yep.
So I wrote industry relationships down there because it's been so key, right? Obviously, we've known you through the years, Brian, and we were so excited when we all came together at a past SWRI. We were able to combine all our tables together. So we had the Drive It, the Willseal, and the Tremco ones all together. Now we can all be at one, but when I speak of relationships, it really comes back to customers. And one of the customers we wanted to feature and talk about today was Leonard James. He is featured in the picture with us. He's been on all of our advertisement, Paul, for Xaware 110AT. I put the funny picture of me taped to the wall, but then Leonard's the guy up in the safety vest. He's an early adopter on our products, was key in a lot of product launches, and we are so excited to welcome Leonard to Tremco Live.
Good afternoon, everyone. That's a funny picture. I mean, it's funny you guys are talking about relationships. I've been in this industry for 20 plus years, and I've known Brian my whole career. And the one thing I've known about Brian is that if he's selling something, it's definitely a quality product. And he puts everything behind it, and he wants to make sure that the customer is fully satisfied with the end result of his product. And I was very happy with the acquisition of Willseal by Tremco, because I've been using Tremco for a very long time in the Boston area, and their reps have been great to work with. They have a wealth of knowledge, and the customer service has always been excellent. And because of that, I've been using Tremco on many projects, and the early adoption that Marcy was talking about, it's because a lot of the products are so good, and I keep asking for other products. You know, do you have a product for a certain situation? If you have a product for this unique situation, and Tremco has always been able to either come up with a solution or say, hey, here's a new product we've been working on for a while, and you should try it out in this location, and let's see how it works and see if it gets us to where we need to be.
I always tell Paul about that, just that, you know, meeting and having time out with customers like yourself has really helped me do the job I've done, you know, to really understand what you guys need, and the challenges you're facing have been really helpful. Leonard, I met you, I think it was probably 8 years ago or more, and I was at ABX or Build Boston, and Kevin Rooney introduced me to you, and you just let me have it of all the things you wanted to see and all your design challenges that you were facing. And really, I mean, if you think about it, we've come out with many products.
Have we delivered on anything for
Leonard? If Kevin Rooney, if he could call in right now, he'd say no, because there's more we still need to give.
Okay.
Leonard still has some things we need to provide, but we definitely have appreciated, you know, your impact and your feedback on the products that we do have and continue to come out with. So
yeah, but that feedback, Leonard, it's invaluable. When it pushes us, and it lets us know what's needed. And as Marcy knows, I like to hear things like that. Actually, I'm a little dangerous once you tee me up with what you want.
I know, I'm afraid to connect you directly with Leonard. From now, Leonard, you have to come through me.
I mean, one good example of a positive part of this collaboration is we do quite a bit of Puma. We love the Tremco Puma, and we're doing a 30,000 square foot deck at UMass Medical Center in Worcester, and we came to a condition where the architect thought that we had two areas of two different slab pours where they butt each other, and there was a pull joint. There was no pull joint. It was an 1.5 inch gap, which led straight into the building. So I contacted Tony Hayes at the Tremco rep that we're dealing with, and he let me know that Willseal had just been acquired, and so I asked, hey, can we use Willseal under the Puma at that location? And he said yes, because they were working on a detail for that right at that moment. So we're able to use the Willseal and the Puma together and get the job done in time. And the customer was extremely happy because it stopped all their leaks. These were leaks they'd been dealing with for decades. And because of this collaboration, we're able to end up with a very, very happy customer.
That's it. That's a great story of that challenge that you faced. I think that's what we when we talk about connections, this is that it closes the connection, right, with this product, because there's just some things that we can't do with our pre-cured membranes that this product really is the better fit for, obviously, from anything on a horizontal application. Being able to use it with Puma has been amazing. It really has completed that for sure.
Yeah, Puma's a remarkable product. I think we're constantly going through compatibility tests about, can Puma do this, can Puma do that? And it really does come down to compatibility, or what's the primer system you need, things of that nature. And we have, for a future episode, we have Leonard, we have some next generation Puma stuff coming that'll, I think you'd be really, really interested in.
Hopefully we can get you out
Sounds
here
great.
again soon too. And just so everybody that's watching knows, at least our reps are paying attention, because I was just corrected that Kevin Rooney didn't introduce me, Tony Hayes did. And it was at Build Boston. So sorry, Tony. He's on vacation and he's even watching. So I guess that's a good thing. But for sure, it's, you know what, Leonard, relationships with you has been so helpful, as I mentioned, and you touch on that, those feet on the street that we got from people like Tony Hayes, and the fact that you've been working with Brian for so many years. I mean, it certainly closes a loop and gives you that confidence in who's there helping you out. And we really do take a lot of pride in being able to service and provide those solutions.
Yeah, and continue to challenge us. I think, Brian, the first time I met you, I think within minutes, I said, Brian, do you have a vision of what's next? Where are we going, right? What are we going to do to keep differentiating? And I think you said, Paul, I can talk for hours on that. So Leonard, keep challenging Brian, and Brian will challenge us. So it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Well, the big challenges are coming at us, and fire rated, of course, is one of the biggest things out there. But there's so many things coming down the pike, and we're developing a lot of new technologies. We've got a lot of new patents and new technology we're going to bring forward, and we're looking, at all the time at collaborating with the other Tremco products and figuring out how we can incorporate things together and make sure that they work, superior to other systems. So, I mean, we're going to continue on that vein for the next few years, and I think deliver a lot of nice products to the marketplace.
Very exciting. Music to my ears, Marcy.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Brian, Leonard. Thank you for being a part of Tremco Live today. We really appreciate it, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Yes,
All right,
thanks.
Bye-bye.
So Paul, we were doing our connectivity roadshow in the month of July. We got one more next week. I know you will not be here with me, but I've got some surprises.
This is my favorite place to be, except if I can go sailing.
Yes, that's true. He's not just doing anything, he's going sailing. So that'll be a good thing. So I got some interesting people to fill your seat.
Okay.
Virtually, of course.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up the month of July with connectivity. We're going to talk a little bit more about connectivity next week. And then in the month of August, my focus is all on industry associations. So I didn't get very creative. I'm calling it Industry Association Month. So we are going to have some co-hosts in the month of August that are involved in different industry associations. So I think it'll be really informative. We'll learn a lot about those industry associations, and I'm sure there'll be call to actions from them on how we all as an organization and the industry can start contributing to building those better buildings together. So it'll be an exciting month of hosts coming up. So please stay tuned in the future.
Well, I was going to say I was going to miss it. I will, but I'll catch up online, probably on the water.
Okay. So very good.
All right, Marcy.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.